Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to another episode of my F1 2021 My Team Career Mode, episode number 75 today at Imola for round number 3 in Season 5. You guys did miss the previous episode uploaded last week at the Chinese Grand Prix, the first time we ever went back to Shanghai for that Grand Prix on this game. Then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one, but I'm raring to go, excited to be coming back to Imola. It's been such a fun circuit to do in career mode ever since it came in to the F1 game, and well, generally speaking, I think the FOM car, the My Team car, has gone quite well around Imola. I kind of mention that because, of course, remember, in this season, as it was the case last season, with near enough kind of everyone having very maxed out cars, it being so close together, it really is all about, you know, track to track, the characteristics. Driver focus is a big thing, and I'm sure last race's race winner, Carlos Sainz, may have gained even more focus for Ferrari there with his win. It's been an interesting opening 2 rounds. Really not sure how to call it yet, because we've seen Ferrari up there, we've seen McLaren up there, but behind the race winner, it's been very mixed up apart from one driver so far, Max Verstappen, 2 second places in a row, and a Mercedes that's qualifying only in Q2 on Saturday, but then in the hands of Verstappen has the race pace to get up to a podium twice then from outside the top 10. Maybe kind of, you know, channeling Alonso Ferrari vibes from 2012. I don't know. It's difficult to call. Williams are clearly quick, but they haven't got the results they maybe deserve so far. And, you know, for ourselves as well, that's probably true at the Chinese Grand Prix. Myself and Bottas were there at the sharp end. And then, of course, we came to blows. And it was Carlos Sainz that picked up the pieces for the race win. Coming to Imola, though, who knows? Verstappen and Mercedes, this was actually their only track they won at last season. So could they do it again? And if Verstappen was to win around here, it would really, you know, put down a statement that he is somehow dragging that Mercedes into a very strong championship fight position so early on because of his consistency with the 2 second places. Like everyone else had such a wildly different set of results. I mean, you could say somewhat I've been kind of consistent in terms of getting just off the podium, but I would like to crack the podium, hopefully maybe one of these races sooner rather than later. It took us quite some time to win our first race in Season 4. Could we try and maybe do it the 3rd time round? I think myself and even Leclerc still finding our feet a little bit with this aarava Porsche Formula 1 car. You know, for myself, definitely still very trigger happy on the rear end and the throttle, still getting used to the new power delivery with the new power unit we've got from this season to the last, and then Leclerc just getting used to a whole new team, of course, as my brand new teammate for this season. But we're in through to Q2, so oh my god, the first part is done, but the second part of qualifying is not a given, as we make a massive mistake there. Just get a little bit too greedy, that was, on the curb and the throttle. That corner is very awkward in these new modern Formula 1 cars. You carry so much speed through on the entry to the left and the right, and then the car gets unsettled as you try and plant the power, and we just did not have enough grip to keep it on the black stuff, so we have to go again. We actually just kept running because I had enough fuel for 2 laps in a row, so this is the same set of tyres I just span into the gravel trap with, so we're going to want to try and go better again on a brand new set of tyres, because otherwise we will be starting the race on a set of tyres that went through the gravel trap. So we are going to improve, shock horror, but that first lap wasn't not too bad. P10, we gained 7 tenths there across the line. P6 it is, P7 by the end of it as the checkered flag falls, and in through to the top 10 shootout then. Bottas is fast of all in the Williams. Leclerc thankfully makes it through. Both Ferraris this time are through. Ricciardo actually manages to make it through with the 2 Red Bulls and the 2 Alpha Tauris. Just one McLaren once again makes it through. This time it's Lando Norris's turn. Lando and George Russell seem to be just sharing Q3 appearances for the papaya-coloured cars. And then again, Verstappen and Mercedes, both of him and it's you know, easy to forget Hamilton, you know, big name, is on the other side of the garage. Both of them knocked out in Q2. I don't even actually recall if Lewis actually even made it through into Q2 itself. He may have been knocked out in Q1 actually because of his lack of pace. But Verstappen again, the man who's leading the championship for the 3rd time in a row, not in the top 10 shootout, but that hasn't mattered so far to him. So let's just see how he makes progress on Sunday. But let's go then to our top 10 shootout, the kind of task at hand, if you will. And we've gone for a first run on a scrub set of soft tyres, but that may have been a bit of a mistake as we go again then, and this is the first fresh set we had wide left for this top 10 shootout. But look at the clouds. Look at the halo. I think there may potentially be, yeah, there is some rain there. You can clearly see it on the right-hand side of your screen. We've got a bit of, blurring from the rain droplets. So the rain that it was forecast to potentially be here for this race weekend was threatening all Saturday, and it's only now come here halfway through our kind of proper first flying lap, because that first lap was just a banker. Let's see what we can do. We still gained 8 tenths across the line. Good enough for the second row of the grid, but it's down to the third row and 5th place in the end, because Ricciardo improves on his lap at the end. But it's our teammate Leclerc who was on pole position. Fantastic job to see our car on pole for the first time this season, alongside Valtteri Bottas. No surprise there, the Williams still looking strong around here. But the Ferraris, they lock out the second row. That's still pretty damn decent. Very close between Sainz to Leclerc, only 3 tenths. But then after that, massive difference. So I wonder if that's because all of us did our kind of proper, quickest laps at the end, where there was a little bit of, slipperiness on the circuit, dampness from the rain. I don't know, but that's a bit of a massive gap between myself and Leclerc in what is, mostly just pure dry conditions. So we've got a little bit of homework to do into Sunday to try and find a bit more pace, and hopefully the race pace comes back to us a little bit. But for Leclerc's sake, I'm happy for him. He's on pole. He can do, hopefully, some good work there and maybe get our team's first win of the season this early on, round 3. We're going to have to find out. There may be rain coming on Sunday as well to mix things up, so it's going to be a bit of a roller coaster. Let's go to the grid.
Hello there and welcome back to Imola, home circuit of the Scuderia Ferrari. We expect to see a lot of local supporters in red today. They've all turned out for what we have every expectation of being a sensational event here at the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. 3.1 miles of track here at Imola, featuring 19 turns, 9 to the right and 10 to the left. Remember that Imola differs from most other Formula One circuits as it's driven anti-clockwise. Let's hope no one forgets that today. The exit from turn 18 will probably be the setup for many of today's overtakes, leading as it does into the longest straight of the circuit and its only DRS zone. Anthony Davidson joins me once again in the commentary box, and it's fantastic to have you with us here today. But I'm curious, as a man with experience out on the track, how do you stop those pre-race nerves from becoming overwhelming when you're lining up on the grid?
But from the moment qualifying's over, you start to feel the adrenaline in your body build up and the buzz in your stomach as you anticipate the run down into turn 1. It's all a bit like going into battle, and the unknown situation makes you nervous. Those pre-race nerves are a good thing. The day you don't have them means that you don't care anymore. And of course you have to make sure that all the procedures are second nature to you, so that they're not taking up too much of your capacity.
It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. A fantastic effort from Charles Leclerc yesterday puts him on pole, and it's Valtteri Bottas that completes the front row. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Sainz, Ricciardo, the owner driver, and Norris, Gasly, Tsunoda, Giovinazzi, and Lance Stroll, Verstappen, Mazepin, George Russell, and Joe, Eilert, Mick Schumacher. They'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty. Esteban Ocon and Lewis Hamilton, Aitken, Latifi, Lundgaard, and Nobuharu Matsushita. And with preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track.
This is certainly going to be a very interesting strategy call here at Imola, because there is rain on the way, and it looks like maybe even heavy rain by the end of the race. But the crucial thing will be, one, first of all, the dry tyres. Can we try and make them stretch to that inter period? I think it's worth the gamble of going on to the medium compound in the middle of the race rather than the hard, because I think the crossover, we're still well within that second stint on mediums when the rain is indicated to start falling. And then the question is, though, what will be the situation in the end? Will we be tiptoeing on the inters, even though it's full wet conditions? Because it may not be worthwhile making an extra pit stop onto full wets, because that is the symbol for full wets at the end of this thing. So it's going to be massively exciting and a bit of an unknown and a big spanner in the works here in the second part of this race. But the first one will all be about the soft compound tyre, and then also the tyre wear onto the softs to mediums, and I'm sure some some AI will actually choose to go onto the hard still, which will be an advantage for us, of course. But first and foremost, we get to the race start. Leclerc, our teammate, in the aarava Porsche Formula 1 car on the front row. We're in 5th place. What can we do today? Could it be the team's first win? Will it be Leclerc? Will it be me? I guess we're going to find that out as we go to 5 red lights for round number 3 of Season 5 at Imola. We're underway. It's a good start for Valtteri Bottas, and the Williams maybe side by side with Leclerc as we go into turn 1. Norris with a cracking start. Gasly with a kamikaze dive bomb down the inside, cuts the curb, makes contact with Sainz in the Ferrari, and we're down 1 more position. We were cautious, but for good reason, because surely Gasly has some sort of damage. If he doesn't, I mean, fair play, but that was just so chaotic and so dangerous from the Frenchman there. We just kind of kept to ourselves on the racing line, made sure we made no contact with anyone. We're down to 7th place, but I just don't, well, I mean, I wouldn't have been comfortable doing what Gasly just did, because I think we would have either span it or hit someone hard enough. Looks like Gasly's fine. Don't know how he's done that, but that may just end up being one of the dive bombs of the race then, or this season in fact, because that was really quite something. He's up into P4 ahead of Sainz. Sainz trying to make a move. We're going to try and copy him. Go down the inside of Lando. Doesn't work. Lando locks up though on the front left. Can we do anything? No, we didn't make the most of that. We weren't aggressive enough on the next corner, using the fact that he locked up to kind of, you know, pounce on him to make the overtake. We're still in P7 as he puts up a robust defense, and we just couldn't quite emulate what Carlos Sainz just did ahead of us, which was overtaking Gasly in the exact same corner in the same position on the inside. This time we're on the outside, banging tyres with our old championship rival from Season 3, and this is getting very fine as we have to go over the bumps, give Lando some room, but equally then squeeze him back a little bit there. Wheel-to-wheel stuff. We're both going over all the curbs, already taking it to the edge and the limit of the circuit. Lando's off in the gravel a little bit, and now we've got Giovinazzi and Tsunoda. They've come through out of nowhere. We did an awesome job of somehow keeping the car on the track and not having a collision of any kind. No damage, it would seem, for either myself or the McLaren. As Giovinazzi dive bomb Tsunoda, though, it's become a 4-way fight as we go down the crest, and Lando! Oh, no! Absolute disaster for us here in the early stages of this race. We've hit the back of the McLaren, and we've got no front wing. We've got a 3-second penalty as well for just cutting across the circuit. But I just went flat out, you know, full throttle through the gravel trap in the runoff area because I was so frustrated at what just happened. It almost happened in slow-mo for me, even though it was all so quickly over. This is a replay then. You can see how much Lando's AI was really squeezing me, so we were equally doing that back to him. And then this is a really good kind of okay bit of driving. You know, we did make contact, but we actually somehow managed to both not crash there. Ironically, you know, I could have easily spun around on Lando. Lando could have, you know, broken my front wing, but nothing of the sort. Giovinazzi dive bombs down the inside of Tsunoda as the Japanese driver locks up, and then as we go down the hill, well, it's pretty much you can't even tell that I've hit the back of the McLaren there, because it was actually just Lando slowing down for Tsunoda. Tsunoda was actually the real person, the real culprit of slowing down so much of that apex. And it was just a reactionary sort of early braking for Lando. Even I was braking early. If you go back and watch, I was actually applying the brakes as we hit the back of him. But it was no use. I was so close to his rear end that even with that braking, it just caught me off guard, him slowing down even more so than I was. And it's a really unfortunate just racing incident, really. I mean, you know, if anything, you know, should have maybe seen it coming. You know, we've seen the AI crash like that before on AI, so it's taken a while, but it's happened to me now. So yeah, frustrating stuff. We made an early pit stop now. It's not the end of the world though, because you can see we come into the pit lane under a virtual safety car that we actually kind of brought out in a way with the debris that was on circuit and us cutting across the circuit. So in effect, we kind of almost get a bit of a free pit stop in a sense, because everyone's going slow at this delta rate under the virtual safety car, and we're on mediums, and we know that the soft tyres do wear out quite quickly around here. So in the end of it, I actually may not lose too much time. We're going to have to see, though. Meanwhile, out in front then, with a very different fortune in this race so far, is our teammate Charles Leclerc in P1 for our aarava Porsche Formula 1 team. We've got Bottas and the Williams Jaguar in second place, giving good pressure so far. The two Ferraris then in third and fourth. Still Ricciardo, surprisingly, the one ahead of Sainz so far. Ricciardo not looked too confident in the prancing horse, but he's changing that so far. Gasly behind in P5. Then you got Giovinazzi, Tsunoda, and Norris still in that three-way battle then that we left them to make the pit stop with Verstappen in P9 right now. So once again, trying to drag his Mercedes up into the top 10 despite being knocked out, but he's going to be overtaken by the Aston Martin of Stroll. What's going on? Is there an issue for Verstappen? And it's Guan Yu Zhou down the inside, the Williams making it a double overtake, and Verstappen has been spun round by Guan Yu Zhou. It's a disaster for the championship leader, remember. He has had 2 second places so far this season. It's easy to forget he's actually the championship leader, seeing him down here, because he just doesn't have the qualifying pace of the Mercedes car. But so unlucky then. The luck's run out. He was doing so well. He got very lucky at Bahrain. It was just a great drive from him at China, but then the luck has kind of run out that he kind of maybe overused at Bahrain as he's spun around, and that's going to be a very long day in the office for him. Meanwhile, we've got Bottas v Leclerc. The P1, the race lead is up for grabs, but Leclerc defends robustly against Bottas. Meanwhile, it's Ferrari v Ferrari as Sainz dives down the inside of Daniel Ricciardo. But that was, we were so close to having a lead change there. Bottas looked very likely to make an overtake, but Leclerc got the elbows out and was having none of it. And in fact, I reckon Bottas has got damage as we continue to watch the two Ferraris have a squabble, and Sainz kind of putting his foot down, and the seniority in Ferrari and stamping his place as the kind of #1 driver so far this season for the Scuderia. He's up into P3, Ricciardo down to P4. Gasly rejoins the pack and the party a little bit, having lost a bit of pace, in the previous laps. But like I said, Bottas, I think he's got damage off that defense from Leclerc. Leclerc continues on through the last bend. Let's see, there's no damage for him. No, he's fine. So he continues on, our teammate in P1, but Bottas is in. Bottas is in, so I suspect that must be for a front wing change. Simulation damage, remember, it only not only affects myself, it affects the AI as well. And we've seen that a few times last season, that, when these AI are fighting so hard, hammer and tong like the two Ferraris are. My God, mamma mia, what a fight here in Imola between the two Italian race cars. And it's going to be, oh my God, it's going to be Sainz just about getting on to P2 now. And Gasly has made the most of a sleeping Ricciardo, and he's up into P3. And I think Ricciardo, just like Bottas, may be facing damage. So I was literally talking about that. When you've got cars fighting AR and AI, when they're so robust in their defense and their attack as well, it's very easy for them to get damage now with the simulation damage and actually have to make an extra pit stop. But of course, that's just that's a result of having the most realistic setting that we have on the base game. It's not a mod or anything like that. It's literally the simulation damage, the most realistic setting the game gives us. Meanwhile, though, anyway, Ricciardo's made a pit stop, and we're seeing Lando Norris try and send one down the inside of Antonio Giovinazzi. Overtook Tsunoda on the main pit straight. He gets the Italian in the Red Bull, and he's up into P4. That was probably coming for a while because he only lost those positions due to fighting me earlier. But we've got Giovinazzi doing a pretty damn good job at, just hanging it through in the Red Bull in P5, whilst Mick Schumacher struggles down in P11. And we just saw Guan Yu Zhou make an excellent move on Tsunoda, by the way. Didn't pick that up straight away, but if you watch closely, he made an absolutely crazy one around the outside of Tsunoda. And so Guan Yu Zhou, the Chinese driver in the Williams, doing very well on those mediums that he started on, by the way. And speaking of mediums, we're back to our POV finally. It seemed like quite an age since we've seen ourselves in this episode, but that's because we've just been quietly going about our business. I've seen no one on track up until now. Ricciardo with that early pit stop, he comes out behind me on a set of soft tyres. So Ferrari and Ricciardo going very aggressive. They may have to pit a second time before the rain comes down, but the rain is starting to fall now, so maybe they're in luck. Maybe Ricciardo Ricciardo and Ferrari, and also Bottas as well. Look at the top left, Bottas is on softs. So those guys who've made early pit stops due to damage, they actually might end up being okay with the soft compound tyres being used twice as we go down the inside of Matsushita in the Haas up into P15. Crucial overtake to get in clean air and chase after Bottas, and also Gasly as well. Gasly's also made an extra early pit stop because Norris is in only now along with my teammate Leclerc, lap 12. So we've got Gasly, I think, yeah, Gasly, Bottas and Ricciardo all in the soft compound tyre. As the rain starts to fall, we're defending against Norris, who's come out behind us. So basically, that early pit stop, despite having to change the front wing due to the fact he was under a virtual safety car, is actually not hurt us that much. And we're right there still. We're still in the kind of quote-unquote top 5 fight once everyone filters down and makes their pit stops. We've got Carlos Sainz still leading the way, and then you've got Guan Yu Zhou, Russell, Schumacher, Mazepin, Jack Aiken, all of them lot. I don't think they've pit yet in this Grand Prix, and especially Guan Yu Zhou, Russell and Mazepin, I think they all started on the mediums because they were outside the top 10 shootout, so they're going to be going even longer. But yeah, you've got Gasly, Bottas, and then behind me Ricciardo, all on the soft compound tyre, so they'll be quicker at this stage of the Grand Prix, but their tyres will wear out quicker. And so will they get to the wet period? Because it's starting to rain now, but is it going to be enough? Is it going to come in time for them? And then vice versa, the other way around, you've got Leclerc and Lando choosing the hard compound tyre, along with Sainz, who's just come out behind Bottas then. So the Williams remains ahead of the Ferrari, but he's been jumped by Gasly. Gasly, remember, was behind both Ferraris and the Williams. He's now ahead of them both. Gasly is in a net P2 position. I don't know how he's done it. Maybe the aggressive soft tyre compound choice has done it for him, because he didn't have any damage. He just made an early pit stop, I think, on his own accord. He's now ahead of these two on the racetrack and may have a go at Leclerc later on, who's on the hard compound. So that's a massive difference in tyre strategy. For us, though, on these mediums, of course, remember, we've been going longer on these mediums than anyone else with that lap 2-3 pit stop. So my tyres feeling it a little bit versus Ricciardo softs, and it's no surprise that he comes charging through as the rain continues to fall. The track getting a little bit damper by the lap. We have a little half look around the outside, but we just really can't do it because Ricciardo is on the quicker tyre. I'm on not only mediums, but worn out mediums that we've been on for about 12 laps now. So, you know, and the Ferrari had DRS, and you know, the DRS is a massive kicker, but I mean, you can see I'm struggling with these tyres and the fact the track is becoming damper by the lap. And meanwhile, whilst that was happening, at the same point, whilst Ricciardo was overtaking me further up the road, a battle for the race lead potentially. Gasly coming through, DRS open on those soft tyres, and he's up into the lead. So Gasly actually at the moment leads this Grand Prix at Emilia. Leclerc down to second, but like I said, the caveat is, will he go the distance? Can he make it to the wet period? Well, I think the wet period might be now. Lap 16, I'm struggling. Look at the indication on the bottom right there. My tyres are wearing out. They're in the puncture region according to the heads-up display, and I actually think it's wet enough, more getting wet enough to come in as we enter the pit lane. The pit window opens and it says intermediate, so my team potentially think it is as well. So this is a big gamble though, because it doesn't look explicitly wet enough yet, but within a lap or two, at the rate it's been raining, I'm really hoping this could be the gamble of the race. We've done it before in kind of different conditions where we've gambled from, you know, wet to dry, and, you know, from inters to wet, but can we do it this time from dry to wet? Roll the dice and see. Right now we're tiptoeing around just trying to find some grip. The rain is still not quite settling enough, but hopefully it will be in a lap or two's time. And the difference was basically my mediums were so worn that I thought it was worth the gamble of doing it, because otherwise my mediums, they would have been so worn out that there wouldn't have been any kind of use in these damp conditions. Bottas is in now. Gasly continues on from Leclerc. Sainz now up into P3. Guan Yu Zhou continues on. Remember, Bottas was on softs as Gasly was. So what is Bottas coming on to? Is he going to go on to inters and just risk it like myself? No, he is not. not. He has done something maybe even worse. He's on to the mediums for a third stint on the dry tyres. We watch on with George Russell making a fantastic but very, very close shave overtake on Mick Schumacher there. Great timing by the camera work. But yeah, Bottas has made a pit stop for a third set of dry tyres whilst the rain's falling. This is going to be a disaster for him, a disaster for Gasly maybe, because I reckon Gasly is going to make the same decision. So it doesn't matter that Gasly made the overtake for P1. Leclerc on the hard compound will be up into the lead properly. Sainz as well up into P2. He was on hards. And Guan Yu Zhou, Bottas' teammate, he's the one in third place. And he's actually legitimately in P3 here because he's on hards. He's going till the rain. Whereas Bottas and now Gasly and Ricciardo, they've all made an extra pit stop onto another set of dries because they can't make it till the rain. The rain is here, but it's not settling enough for them to warrant the intermediates, they don't think. I made that gamble though, so that's maybe an inkling that maybe we've just gone a bit too extreme and we've gambled too hard here, because if the AI don't think that it's time for inters here, like those ones on softs like Gasly and Bottas, then maybe we've made the wrong call. But I in my mind, it was senseless to make another pit stop for a set of softs, let's say, only to then pit in a few laps later for the intermediates. I just think it was worthwhile just staying out. And, you know, the rain is settling now. Lap 19, it's looking a lot wetter out there, and I'm feeling a bit more confidence in the car. Sonoda behind me, 1.1 second. He's gaining on us a little bit. Well, you're pulling away on the straights. We're not doing too badly in the corners. So I think, you know, we're just about maybe getting to that crossover. But we probably went a few laps too early. I think if we pit now, lap 20 or lap 19, and did the gamble and the throw of the dice then, I think we would have been in a much better position. But I don't actually think we could have made it that far on the mediums without losing too many, you know, crucial seconds, let alone tenths, around the lap, basically. But we now see a load of cars coming in. That is Lando Norris is in, Guan Yu Zhou is in. Leclerc and Sainz stayed out then, interesting enough. But Guan Yu Zhou is in, and I suspect it'll be for a set of intermediates now. So now everyone is crossing over to inters. Russell continues on though. He's flying very high, doing very well, having been knocked out in Q2. So both McLarens looking quite strong in Imola, it would seem, and Guan Yu Zhou as well. And there is Bottas and Gasly. Ironically, they've overtaken those guys, but they have to make another pit stop onto inters, and they're going to be coming out around where I am in P15 there at the bottom of the ladder, bottom of your screen. As we can see now, we go back to our POV. Here we are then, lap 21, 11 laps to go in this Grand Prix. P13 up into P12, P11 just about get Mick Schumacher. So we're just outside the points. Norris, there he is, 9.6 seconds ahead of us. We were with Lando before that pit stop. We were ahead of him just about, you know, blocking him basically on the worn tyres. So in all of this, I've lost about 10 seconds. But I reckon we would have lost more with their extra pit stop, because the extra pit stop is a whole, you know, 15+ second pit stop. And you've got people like Ricciardo who made that extra pit stop along with Bottas and Gasly. They might be high up there right now, but they're going to come in. Guan Yu Zhou is already on the inters, so he sails through up into, shoots up to P3, Sainz out in P2. So the top three, there's Leclerc at inters, so the top three are legitimately Leclerc from Sainz, Guan Yu Zhou, Giovinazzi would seem in P5 as Lando goes up into P4. But the Italian, I don't know where Giovinazzi's actually come from. Very impressive by him. I don't know what tyre he was on earlier, but he's up in P5 and he's actually on inters. He's actually there in P5. So a fantastic job by one of the home favourites in P5 in the Red Bull. Russell's done fantastically to jump up to P6. You know, he was, you know, down in P14, was it, in qualifying. Stroll as well. He's another one kind of out of shape, but he's in P7, like Bahrain, trying to kind of get some cheeky points for Aston Martin. But there's Gasly, there's Bottas, and there is myself in P10, right behind Valtteri Bottas. And we were nowhere near Bottas before we made the gamble to inters. So even though we've lost some time to Lando and those lot, we've gained against Bottas and Gasly and Ricciardo, because, you know, the only other option for us would have either have been making an extra pit stop like them onto softs, or trying our best to string up the medium. And I just know that probably would have ended pretty badly, like, you know, in like a spin or something like that. because my tyres were feeling so dead by that point. They were already, well over 60% in the tyre puncture region. You saw with the heads-up display. So yeah, it's a sticky one. I don't quite know how to feel about it. We've made the gamble. We are where we are, and we now have to make the most of it, really. And making the most of it requires racing these three: Bottas, Gasly, and Stroll. So it's by no means a kind of wooden spoon fight. We've got some big names here: Gasly and Bottas here. Stroll doing very well, I must say, but I feel like it's futile. Eventually, myself, Gasly, and Bottas will probably overtake him, as the Aston Martin is not as competitive as it used to be in this career mode series. But first and foremost, we need to try and get past Bottas, and to be fair to Stroll, Gasly's struggling to really make a big impact on him so far, and these kind of laps have been catching these three. But here we go, Gasly going for a move on the outside. Can we do anything? We're going to take it nice and easy. In these conditions, you can't be too aggressive. We're going to make sure we get the right racing line, and there it is. We're going to go through on the inside there, the double overtake on Gasly and Bottas. Gasly tries to attack us. We defend as well as we can, oh so narrowly, just about keep the car on the black stuff and using the curbs and behind. Oh no! Disaster for Pierre Gasly. The AlphaTauri goes up in smokes, and the Frenchman is out of the Grand Prix with only a handful of laps to go. Gasly out, so in a way, in a sense, maybe it was a good thing for Pierre mentally not to be out in the lead fighting Leclerc still, because he would have had that engine failure from the lead of the Grand Prix, or second place, let alone down in P8. So frustrating times for AlphaTauri. They continue to be underperforming compared to clearly where their car is in terms of actual race pace and whatnot. They're just still not getting the points on the board, very much like last season. Meanwhile, for us, we overtook Stroll with ease. You would have seen there whilst we're talking about that. And then behind me, there is an absolute ding-dong fight between Bottas and Stroll. And this is actually going to help us out massively, because I've got a 3-second penalty, remember. I've got 3 seconds. I think it's from cutting the gravel and the curb so quickly once I lost my front wing in frustration. And so we've got to bridge a 3-second gap so that I actually finish in 7th place. I don't think there's any chance of catching Russell or Giovinazzi. They've got a bit too much pace for me right now on these inters, but we've got enough pace to pull away a bit from Bottas, and more so, it's really Bottas fighting Stroll so much. I mean, Schumacher tries a little last-ditch effort there, but to no end. But yeah, Bottas and Stroll fighting, that alone lost them 5 seconds. So I've already got the 3 seconds I need to Valtteri to remain in P7. So thank you very much to, I guess, Lance Stroll, really, for one, holding up Gasly and Bottas in the first place, and then, holding up Bottas so much so that we can kind of relax a bit and make sure, and just bring it home in P7 with the penalty as well. But yeah, up ahead of us, Russell in a McLaren sandwich with Giovinazzi in the middle. Amazing stuff from George, I must say, to recover from outside the top 10 and join Lando in the top 6 here. Strong race for the McLaren boys for sure. Guan Yu Zhou, very, very impressive there. The Chinese driver won one race last season. It's a podium, his first one of the season, I believe, here today around Imola. Great stuff for him to be leading the Williams Jaguar team today, where Bottas faltered a bit. But Sainz in second, the last race winner. But it's going to be our teammate, Charles Leclerc, who jumped ship from Ferrari to come to our team. He's going to win at the home of Ferrari in Imola. And he's won his first race of the season, the first race for the team. Absolutely stunning drive for him. I'm sure a lot of you will be very happy about that. Those of you that wanted to see Leclerc come to my team at some point in this career mode series. We hadn't done it for a while in a career mode, having Leclerc as our teammate. There you go. He has won a race here. And to be fair, he's dominated this one, really. In fact, we're going to come home in P7, even with the 3-second penalty. We've done the most we could. We gambled very hard, and it just didn't crop out completely. But we kind of also did win a little bit on the gamble, against Gasly and Bottas. I can't complain too much. I think overall just made the most of what was a bit of a messy Grand Prix.
You can't fault the performance on the track today. A well-deserved victory. So, Anthony, what made the difference out there today?
Well, they clearly have a car that comes alive in the kind of conditions we were dealing with today. It's a very balanced package in the wet, and what that means is that the drivers have confidence to attack. And having that confidence gets you on the power earlier, it lets you brake later, and can put you a long way up the road.
The faces on our top 3 look so incredibly happy as they make their way up to the podium. A much-deserved victory, And a brilliant performance from them all.
So Porsche as a brand win in Formula 1, and they've done it with Charles Leclerc at the first time of asking here. This is exactly why Leclerc wanted to jump ship from Ferrari to join a brand like Porsche that would give him a car to win, and he has done. We have done as well, of course, as we're equally half the other side of the team. Aarava Porsche Formula 1 team winning again in Formula 1 there. Sainz second place, very decent stuff for him. That's going to be strong for his championship position because he won the last race, of course. Guan Yu Zhou, though, like I said, very impressed by him leading the Williams team. Both McLarens really strong there. And there you go, Carlos Sainz leads the way then from Verstappen, who had a race to forget, really. And he's going to want to reset and go again and try and, just think of this one as a bit of a outlier race. Verstappen is, because he was doing brilliantly in the first 2 rounds. And then Leclerc catapults himself up into P3. You've got the 2 McLarens right up there. Guan Yu Zhou ahead of Bottas at the moment in the standings, which is surprising. But Bottas needs to pull up his socks and actually get a bit more consistent like he was at the end of last season, really. But the standings, there they are. We lead the way, but it's still so early on. Can't tell who's meant to be where. McLaren, Ferrari, Williams ahead of Mercedes now. Both Red Bull, Honda power teams, Red Bull and AlphaTauri, looking a bit lower there. And, maybe that's just the Honda power unit. Maybe both teams are just not as good this season. Clearly, AlphaTauri is still the better Red Bull team. And they've just, not actually made the most of it to be behind the Red Bull team in the standings. But, really, well and truly, all 4 of the cars have not been amazing, you would say, in the same way AlphaTauri were last season. So clearly some pace has been maybe lost over the winter and into this transition for a new season. So interesting stuff. We'll see how that develops, of course. But guys, if you did enjoy this 3rd episode of this season at Imola, then be sure to hit that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. And I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.